Ellen's running. Thanks, Dottie. Mary late, so she asked that you kick off whenever you're ready. We do have a quorum, so whenever you're ready, we can start.
Okay, we can get started. I don't know if could you put up the agenda?
I can.
I apologize. I'm
No problem at all.
a little bit here.
Share screen.
And Joanne, if you want me to read the accessibility statement, I'm happy to do that for you.
Well, that'd be great. Could you do that, Donnie?
Sure. While she's doing getting that set up, I will read the accessibility and non-discrimination statement. Old Colony Planning Council, including the CEDS committee, assure that no person shall be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be otherwise discriminated against under any of its programs and activities. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities and those with limited English proficiency. Accessibility accommodations and language services will be provided free of charge upon request as available. Our full policies are available at www.ocpcrpa.org. Any person who feels their protections have been violated may file a written complaint within 180 days to Mary Waldron at mwaldron@ocpcrpa.org or Old Colony Planning Council, 70 School Street, Brockton, Mass. 02301.
Great, thank you, Dottie. So we could move on to the roll call. Joanne, do you want to?
Yep, I'm just going to have to stop sharing for a minute. Or actually, let me just, sorry, I'm on another computer today. I'm not used to it. All right, so roll call. John Murray.
Here.
Mary Ellen Brett said that she will be joining us, but she is running late. Jason Hunter.
Lorraine Albert standing in for Jason today.
Thank you, Lorraine. Chris Cooney. I don't see Chris on. Pam McCarthy.
Here.
Rob May. I don't see Rob on. Stephanie Danielson.
Here.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mary Ellen DeFrayis. Oh, sorry, Mary Ellen has moved on to GATRA. Jay Patikas. Okay. Jennifer Dubois-Briand.
Here.
Val Massard. I do believe Val's planning on joining us. She might be running late. Lee Filson. Mike Lambert. I see we have Joe on for Mike. Joe, you there? I don't know if you accepted the panelist, Dottie. I can't see on my screen.
Joanne, I am in.
Ah, you are in. Hello, Joe. Okay.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Deborah Roberts. Nope. Stephen Cole.
Here.
And Jack Riley.
I'm here.
And Kyle Haas.
Also here.
Awesome. I also see we have Evan Sears. Evan, are you here in place of Rob or John? Or do you know if they're joining? Evan, are you there?
Yes, they have it on
Not
their
sure.
schedule as they're attending, but they're on a tour right now, so I'm not sure if they're going to be here or not.
Okay. So I'm going to count you as them, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. So that is roll call completed. Thank you all.
Great, thank you, Joanne. The next item is, I know Joanne had sent out the meeting minutes from our last meeting. People had a chance to take a look at those. We could entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Pam. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Stephanie. The minutes are approved. Our next item on the agenda is an update on the committee membership. Joanne?
Okay. Yep. Thank you, John. So we are up to 16 members right now. I think everybody can see my screen. Let me make that a little bit bigger. 16 members right now. The bylaws allow for 19, and we have more interest than the bylaws allow. So at previous meetings, we had discussed Trisha White from T White Creations. Trisha is a small business advocate and marketing expert. She does some work for NeighborWorks. as well as small businesses in our region, including the Norwood Space Center and others. So Trisha has said that she would like to join. We've talked to Melissa Ferretti, who is the chair lady and president of the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe. Melissa is very, very busy with a whole bunch of things, as you can imagine, being the tribe representative in the area. So she has expressed an interest. We've also got Laura Buckley from South Shore Workforce Board, who would like to join, as well as Mary Ellen DeFrayis, who you all know because she used to be on here for another organization. She'd love to have a seat for GATRA as well. And then in prior meetings, we had talked about getting somebody else from NeighborWorks Housing Solutions as well. 19, 20, 21. So that would bring us up to 22 members if we wanted all those folks on. So what I was hoping we could get some feedback on today and maybe have some discussion about whether we want to keep 19 seats and just decide amongst these people who we would like to invite to join for the time being. Or if folks would like to amend the bylaws today or at the next meeting to allow for either uncapped membership, or we can push it up to, for example, 25. So we'll have these folks on as well as leave a couple of extra seats. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, opinions?
I think it would make sense to have a minimum number of members, but I think maybe it should be uncapped, because I think the more people that we have on the committee, the more information and opinions we'll be able to gather. So I actually think it's good to have the extra people.
Anybody else have any thoughts or anybody supporting that suggestion?
I would support that suggestion.
I support that.
I as well.
Okay, would somebody, let me see. So what would the wording for that be? Let me just look at the membership right now. So it says right now that the CEDS committee shall be capped at 19 members. So what we could change the language to is the CEDS committee shall be a minimum of 19 members.
That would work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So would the quorum be tied then to the minimum?
That's a good question. How does quorum work in those situations? Does anybody know?
I think it would be tied to how many are actually appointed,
Right.
Right.
Whoever's sitting.
correct?
And sometimes that can make it a challenge to achieve quorum, the more people that are on it.
Mm,
That's something we'd want to think about, Joanne, I think.
yeah.
But Joanne, at the beginning of the new year, you already reaffirmed with people that they did want to be on it. And if you bring on these new people and confirm that they still want to be on it, maybe when that happens, we can look and see this is great attendance today. So that's a really good sign that the people that wanted to be on the committee are here today. But I think that the wording, you're probably gonna have to look at that a little bit on, you know, as it relates to quorum, or think if you want to have associate members or whatever.
Mhm. I think Mary has her hand raised.
If I could weigh in first, I tried to let both Mary Ellen, Brett, and Val in, but I'm unable to. So that's number one. But number two, in conversations that I've had with some of the council members who end up being the appointing, or at least they ratified the members, there's been just the conversation about making sure that this membership is, I mean, there are so many things that need to be done with this membership, right? The EDA in terms of how many businesses and private and nonprofit, but the council members have also weighed in and making sure that it's representative of the region as well. So we're not too heavily eastbound or westbound, or so that came particularly from one particular council member. So when also looking at the membership, I just want to weigh in with the wishes of the council that they just want geographically that it's also representative, which I think that this group has done a really great job at.
the quorum section in our bylaws at the moment says that for any duly called meeting, a quorum shall consist of a simple majority of members. What we did originally discuss, I remember, was having like a quorum that's a minimum of 6 members or 8 members or whatever. That is also allowable as well. So maybe what we can do is between now and the next meeting, I'll go back to the folks that I had named on the membership development document, reconfirm whether they want to join. And at the next meeting, I'll do some research prior to and present some language for changes to both Section 2 membership as well as the quorum for meetings. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, super. Let's do that. Great. John, did you get a hold of the agenda or do you need me to pull it
Yeah,
up?
no, I have one in front of me. Thank you. So I think our next item on the agenda is an update on the co-hosted webinars. Joanne?
Yep. Thank you. So
Not to interrupt, but interrupting you. There was a question in that section for number 4 about call for interest for committee chair to be voted on at the next meeting also.
oh, yes. Thank you, Dottie. So for the past year, we've had John and Mary Ellen as co-chairs. John has suggested that he would like to step off and make way for somebody else. Mary Ellen would like to continue as chair if nobody else is interested, but she also welcomes somebody to take the chair seat and or be a co-chair with her. So at the next meeting, we would like to vote on that. So if anybody is interested in either co-chairing with Mary Ellen or instead taking the reins as chair, please let us know. And we'll put that to a vote at the next meeting. So you can just send me an email. You don't have to let me know right now. And that's it on that. Thanks for the reminder, Dottie.
And let me just, if I may, first of all, apologize. My 11 o'clock ran a little bit over and it was an important piece where I couldn't leave, but I'm happy to see everybody and just to allay anyone's fears that they might have about stepping into a co-chair or a chair role. I have to give a shout out to the amazing staff at OCPC. They are really like the best and top notch. And, you know, they provide like outstanding staff support to this committee. And I'm sure all the other committees like transportation and so forth. So if anyone has any questions about sort of what's involved in the role of the function, and they want to talk with me offline, please feel free to do so. I'm very happy to chat with anybody, and I welcome, you know, folks to express their interest.
Thank you,
Mary.
All right, so on the webinars, we had a great webinar last month on broadband, which, I don't know, Dottie, do you want to kind of update the group a little bit on that while we're on that topic, just to let them know about the grant that didn't go through EDA, but what the next steps are with that?
Sure. That was biotech, the grant.
I'm sorry, biotech. You're right, biotech. Sorry, that's what I meant.
We have a lot of stuff going on, so it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to keep track of them. But the Broadband Coalition, so they were waiting to get some ARPA money from the state to be able to push that out into the communities, and that didn't get put through yet. So they're still waiting on that. And we're waiting for updates on it, but they have been pushing out some information. We did get a lot of interest in that webinar. We got a lot of great feedback from it. There were 85 people that were signed up for it and 65 that attended. The people that didn't actually attend, a lot of them reached out in advance and said, I really want to be on it. And they signed up just to make sure that we sent the follow-up to them. So I know many of the communities were really excited about the ACP, where income qualified families could get $30 internet service. So that's really a great benefit to the people that are in our communities.
Thanks, Dottie. So with the other webinar ideas, we had talked about doing one about the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And what was decided on that is that there is quite a lot of information coming out via MassDOT and other entities around that, which is kind of very time sensitive as well as specific to different areas like transportation. And so a webinar would be kind of probably by the time we started planning and held it, things would have moved on quite significantly. So it'd be kind of difficult to do a webinar around it. But the Joint Transportation Committee that OCPC runs, as well as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Old Colony region, both very regularly have updates on transportation related bill opportunities. So I encourage everybody to follow our calendar and check in our email newsletter to see when those meetings are, to keep up to date with that information. Whenever we do hear of something coming out related to the infrastructure bill, we do put it in our weekly newsletter as well. So if you haven't signed up for that, make sure you go to our homepage and sign up for that, because you'll definitely be informed of stuff as it happens through that. So that leaves us with 2 webinars for 2022 to plan, one for October and one for November. One of the other topics that we had discussed at a previous meeting for our webinar was something around attracting good developers to your community. So we could potentially do that for an October webinar, and then pick a topic for November from our long list of ideas, which I am going to share in a moment. But while I share that screen,
While you're looking for that, I just want to acknowledge that Val Massard has joined since we started, and to congratulate Val on being our new chair of the OCPC Council. So thank you for being here, and also a delegate from Kingston.
Thanks. Hi, everybody.
all right, can everybody see this document here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So our other ideas from previous meetings were a webinar about revitalizing downtown's main streets. That could potentially now include something about what that looks like in a post-COVID world. We could do something about writing winning grants, or even more specifically about EDA grants, the Economic Development Administration. We had suggestions in the past for arts and culture as an economic development driver, and or something around tourism. Those two things are kind of related. Also something about clean energy, green jobs, including the PACE program that Mass Development runs. So we've got some ideas there. And then of course, the attracting good developers one to your community. So do folks have any thoughts on what we should do for October and November? Or are you happy for OCPC to just kind of run with stuff? We'd love your suggestions. We wanted to do stuff that's useful for you guys. So if there are hot topics out there or anything that you're working on, we'd love to hear those suggestions.
This is Stephanie. I vote for arts and culture as an economic development drivers being one of those webinars.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I'm voting for grant writing because there is going to be a ton of them coming up.
Okay, so you're thinking more general towards federal grants, Rob, or just grant writing or EDA?
Federal in general.
Yep. How do folks feel about tackling these two? So writing grants and arts and culture, and keeping attracting good developers maybe for next year? Or do we feel that that's a hot topic to cover right now?
Val also put in the chat grant writing.
Okay. So is anybody opposed to us doing these two? So the grant writing and the arts and culture?
Those sound good to me.
All right, sounds like a plan. So we do try and hold them for Tuesdays at noon, in keeping with kind of our overall CEDS schedule. That's going to be dependent on the speakers. So I'll get working on that and try and firm up those dates as soon as I can. thank you guys for input on that.
Great, thank you, Joanne. So the next part is Dottie's going to discuss economic development data tools. Turn over to you, Dottie.
Sure. So a lot of people don't realize that much of OCPC is funded based on grants, big grants from federal grants and state grants and other private grants as well. So we were looking to get a grant for economic development. Joanne, her position is funded by one grant, and we were looking for another one to fund for project-based grant. So we applied for a grant that was larger than this one, and the EDA came back and said they've had so much interest in grants this year. They worked with us to scale it back a little bit to get the funding level down. So we had to restructure this. The original intent was to include a regional tourism study, and we pulled that out. And what we ended up with is, some of you may remember, several years back, Barry Bluestone from Northeastern had an economic development self-assessment tool, and he worked with a lot of the communities then to go through. It helps identify their assets and figure out some strategies on how to move forward with economic development initiatives. That's pretty dated right now. There's nothing in there about climate or energy or some of the things that we really look at now when we're looking at that economic development picture. So we had the idea to take the inspiration of that original tool, but modernize it a little bit to include some of the things that we know, not just from climate and energy, but also some of the lessons learned from the pandemic with sustainability and flexibility of industry. So that is that we got that part of the grant, and that's for 2 years for us to work on that. We're going to create the tool, and we're going to test it out with 1 or 2 communities if we have enough time. And then it will be available to work with all of the communities in our region. The other part of that is, one of the lessons that we learned during the pandemic is communities that are trying to do grant writing, or they're trying to look at planning themselves, they need data. So for instance, one of our local communities is trying to apply for an ADA transition grant. And I was able to go on and spend a couple hours yesterday giving her the data that she needed, you know, how many people in your community are disabled and all those kinds of numbers. But as you probably know, if you work for a municipality, you don't have a lot of time to spend figuring out where's the data now, because a lot of it moves around and things like that. So we wanted to put a data portal for each of our communities on our website, so that if you're in Plymouth and you're looking at doing something, you can go on and see what are the top industries, or what is the per capita income, or what is the average, you know, home value. So we want to do that for each community. And that requires that the data is going to need to be updated. So that will be a long-term project as well. But we have 2 years to get that done and get that up and running. And for both of those, we'll start off by coming up with a rough draft of the plan, and then convening stakeholders in all of the communities and people on the CEDS and businesses, and maybe even a subgroup of the CEDS to see if we're on target, what are we missing. You can't really just look at this through a municipal or just a business or just a nonprofit. We want to have a multi lens on this to make sure that we're covering everything. And we're really excited about working on it. So we think it's going to be really valuable to the communities and help drive a lot of the things that you're working on. So that is a $75,000 grant matched by $75,000 in local investment, so $150,000 over 2 years. And any questions on that? Anyone want to help with it?
Dottie, I have no questions. I think this is a wonderful idea. And to the extent that I can, I'll love to help out.
Oh, great. Thank you. So I'm sure
Hey,
I'll
Dottie.
be tapping into people. It shouldn't be too much of a heavy lift, but
This is Kyle. I'd be happy to help if I can.
awesome. Thank you, Kyle. And so one of the other things, just a couple of other notes that I was thinking while we were talking. So Joanne mentioned the biotechnology. So we've been working with Northeastern University. They applied for a Build Back Better grant, and they did receive the round 1 funding, which was to come up with a concept. And their concept was essentially to connect Maine, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island and really bring biotechnology out of Cambridge into some of the other communities to spread that wealth across the Commonwealth and across other states. And so they worked really hard on it. They put together an advisory team. And unfortunately, they did not receive the second part of the grant award. But what they did tell us is that they are going to move forward with that, whether they got that grant funding or not. So I think that right now we just found out like a week ago that they didn't get it. They're thinking about that, but we're looking at convening some stakeholders in the October timeframe to start the conversation about biotech. What is it? What does it mean to your industry or to our community for jobs, for education, for workforce development? So it's really hot. It's going to be really exciting. When President Biden made his announcement yesterday, he was talking about biotechnology. So it's something that we definitely should have on our radar as something to be interested in. And I'm really excited to move forward with them on that. And the other thing, speaking of arts and culture, is that the Mass Cultural Council, the statewide level, they have 2 grant applications that are open right now. One is an organizational grant, so organizations that do arts and culture. It's $5,000 to $75,000, and it's unrestricted. So sometimes those grants are just for particular projects. This could be used for anything that you want to use it for, administrative wise or project based. And then they have also another grant for individual artists that both of those grant applications close at the end of September. And then locally, each community has a cultural council, and that cultural council gets funding from the Mass Cultural. And what they do is they accept applications from local artists in their communities, and they decide at the end to divide how they're going to divide up that money amongst the artists. So I know that Easton has had some notices out asking artists to apply for those grants. I think those grants are due in the end of September, and those announcements are made in the October timeframe. So if you have artists in your community, make sure you share that with them. And when we do the follow-up notes to the meeting, I can put the link to those grants online. And then the last thing is Brockton. The Brockton Redevelopment Authority is going to be having an event on September 19th from 10 to 12 and 1 to 3 at Brockton Community Access Center on Main Street. This is sponsored by the Metro South Chamber. And so it says to join Small Business Strong in partnership with the Brockton Redevelopment Authority for a free small business retreat designed just for small businesses. It will help with small business advising and strategy, business planning, branding and marketing, PPP forgiveness, small business grants, human resources and operations. So they're looking for about 70 small businesses to be a participant in this. And it's going to be a really great event. And so I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, but as soon as I'm done, I'll put that link in the chat. So
Dottie, what date was that?
that is September 19th.
Thank you.
And is that event only for Brockton businesses?
I think, well, it's being marketed to Brockton businesses, so I'm not sure. I don't know that they would turn away another business, but it really is focused on Brockton businesses. And they do, one other thing to mention is they do have Chinese, Spanish, Cape Verdean, Portuguese, Creole, and Haitian Creole translations available. And I think that's all I have, Joanne.
Thanks, Dottie. I just want to add to what Dottie was saying too, that going forward, we really hope to have those items that Dottie talked about as sort of standing items as part of the committee. So even if you don't directly volunteer for something. Nobody's escaping. All of our CEDS meetings will be talking about these projects.
And I have a question, just, and stop me if I've said this, if I've asked this before, but I know that you all have access to and are notified about great grant opportunities. And I know that you're going to put these in the chat, which is great. I kind of wanted to go back to the idea that we also serve kind of as a clearinghouse, you know, to let other communities in our catchment area know about these. I mean, particularly the grant that you talked about from the Mass Cultural Council, you know, our organizations, as you said, Dottie, it's very rare that a grant would be so open, you know, and that it could support operational and administrative costs on top of project-based work. So those are all of them are great opportunities. And I'm just wondering, you know, how we continue to get the word out.
So OCPC is in the middle, or not in the middle, it's pretty much at the end of having a new website ready for launch. On that website, I'm not sure if at launch or, you know, in the next couple months or so, there will be a a specific page dedicated to grant opportunities that we're going to be keeping updated as stuff comes out. But right now we've found that the best way to let people know in a way that's time sensitive is just through that OCPC email newsletter that we send out on a weekly basis. So whenever we do hear of a grant opportunity, we do put it in that newsletter. We do also directly email partners and communities and others in the region. So like if we know that Brockton is specifically interested in brownfields grants, for example, then we will email the Brockton team and let them know. So when you guys are thinking about stuff, even if you're not yet doing it, but it's like, you know, in the medium term future, keep OCPC posted as well too of what like your interests and needs are, because we do take the time to then email direct opportunities to folks if we know it might be helpful for that. But if anybody else has any other suggestions, then for how to communicate that information, then, you know, please do share. Megan is sort of our communications person. She's not on the call today, but we can definitely pass those suggestions on if you do have any others.
I think having them posted on the new website, you know, in that's being sort of a clearinghouse for information, because I totally appreciate the weekly newsletter. I think it's really good and really helpful, but not everybody is on it and not everybody has access to it, or they don't have time to read it when they get it, and it just kind of falls off. But then, you know, something will happen in their orbit where they say, oh, you know, this is an opportunity we need to pursue. Where would I go? You know, just kind of as a one-stop for any current opportunities. And that would be fantastic. For example, I would let the folks know at Massasoit, you know, to make sure that they added that to something that they would check on a regular basis. So that's exciting. Thanks.
And if people follow us on social media, we try to hit all the points. So
I know.
we do post a lot of things on Facebook as well. And I'm not sure how much we tweet. I'm not really involved in that part of what we do, but definitely on Facebook, we do have a lot of grants notifications or other good information.
Thanks.
Right, so I think that brings us to the member updates. Don't know if anybody has any updates right now.
So I'll share one update. Massasoit is one of 15 community colleges, as you know, in the state, and we have dollars that are connected to the pandemic. And I just wanted to let folks know that we're working on developing short-term credentialed or certificated programs to help offset folks who are unemployed or underemployed. And so over the next year and a half, we'll be offering programs for those who are eligible. And again, that's unemployed and underemployed. I've already reached out to some of the folks at Mass Hire about this. And, you know, Massasoit has a lot of great programs anyways, but these have to be done in the course of a year, no longer than a year. And they have some other parameters. But so that's on the horizon. As soon, hopefully at the next meeting or the one after that, I'll be able to update folks with exactly what programs. But at the end of the day, if a person is eligible, this won't cost them anything. And so we're looking at allied health, we're looking at IT, we're looking at sort of office support, administration, customer service, and a range at this point, and also seats in currently running programs. So for example, if we have a program like medical assistant, that might be a program that somebody would just be able to purchase a seat. We would purchase on their behalf. So more to come. Like I said, we're just sort of pulling all of that stuff together, and it will happen over this all of next calendar year and into the spring semester of the following year. So we have there's some time. Any questions? Thank you, John, for your comment there. Yes, looking in the biotech as well. Lab technician, just that we hear about that often. And so that is something that we're looking into too. We're looking for living wage jobs in high demand industries. So that's our focus. And like I said, I'll keep everybody posted via our monthly meetings. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to contact me.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Any other updates? Deborah, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you, John, and to the other participants. I'm just trying to get a feel for the type of information that I can share with you. So in October, I am a part of an event with the NAACP Brockton chapter and a nonprofit organization called ADMITech. And this is to focus on the disparities in healthcare specific to those males that have prostate cancer. So it is encouraging, especially Black males, since they are over 2 times likely to die of that cancer. And it's to get pre-screening. So is something like that can be posted on your website, that type of event? It's healthcare related, it's prostate cancer awareness, and is focused on males 40 and above to get their PSA screening.
Yeah, we can certainly help share that information. And as you were saying that, I was thinking in other community groups that would be interested in that too as well. I'm a member of the Easton Lions Club, and I know that they've done some work partnering with the Brockton Lions Club. Those are some groups that we always get certain information to because they have a lot of members and they have a great network of getting information out there. So something important like that, I think that's something that we should be thinking about. How do we want to get information out and what's appropriate to send through what channel? So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
I've typed into the chat Megan Fournier's email address. Megan is our communications person at OCPC, amongst a million other things that she wears many hats. She's great. But any kind of information like that for sure can be shared with Megan, and Megan will then put it out on social or in our newsletter or on the website or whatever kind of makes the most sense. So please, and that applies to everybody. If you've got any information that you want to share in the region and with other communities, please do send it to Megan and she can help put that out for you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Deborah. Anyone else for updates?
I just wanted to say that I still appreciate all the work that Dottie did on the marketing app for Stoughton, and I'm still working on it. I'm up to almost 400 people that have signed on. The business is really appreciated, but I took it the next step and I was able to get Trish White to have, she came and gave like a little class almost with about a dozen business owners that I set up to meet with her to talk to them about the Mass Growth Capital Corporation Digital Empowerment Grant. So that way the businesses that don't already have the website set up or don't know how to use social media, she's going to help them figure out how to apply for those grants because I had to find, she's an approved technical assistant. We didn't have one in Stoughton. So luckily I was able to connect with her through NeighborWorks, and she's willing to do that for the Stoughton businesses. So I thought that that was great. And I hope that she actually is able to get onto the CEDS committee because she's a great resource. And the other thing I'm doing with NeighborWorks is I set up a foreclosure prevention program. I did this when I worked in Norwood. Was getting a little bit worried with inflation that people are going to start to struggle a little bit more with their bills, and there'd be an uptake in people getting foreclosed on. So I arranged, so I get the notices from the Registry of Deeds every month who got pre-foreclosure notices, and then I reach out to them with the NeighborWorks information about the counseling that they provide. And there's also a grant for people that are eligible. They're actually able to get money for 3 months worth of mortgage payments. So, and this group helped me connect with Trish. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you, Pam. Joe, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks, John. So Brockton Area Transit has installed a couple of electric chargers for public use. One is at our surface lot at 155 Court Street, and the other is in the parking garage off 170 Center Street. Also, we are in process of developing a fleet zero emission transition plan through a consultant. We've ordered 5 electric buses that should be delivered by June of next year. We hope to get those on the road very shortly thereafter. So the intent ultimately is to transition to all zero emission vehicles that will certainly improve air quality around the town measurably. And what else? We had bus hub expansion at the Westgate Mall Market Basket, where we will be extending that bus stop to be able to handle 3 buses simultaneously, so we can get more volume through that area. That actually starts tomorrow, so we'll have that project wrapped up by the end of the month. So lots of other stuff going on too, but I figured those are some highlights we'd like to share.
That's great, thank you. Stephanie?
So back almost a month ago, which is really hard to believe, time's going by so fast, the Eastern Economic Development Council hosted a business forum. It was hosted at the Northeastern Savings Bank headquarters down on Eastman Street. It was very well attended. We had Margaret LaForest from the Mass Office of Business Development there to talk about the programs that they have available for local businesses and to help them out, and especially at recovering from COVID. We had one of our local businesses talk about how they managed immediately after the lockdown and then continuing up to current time and what they needed to do. And one of the things we did was ask the business owners what their current challenges are still as they're recovering from COVID. We heard 2 things. One, not surprisingly, was that attracting and keeping workers is still an ongoing problem. Dottie did mention the different hiring services that are available, and people seem to be familiar with those. And for those aren't, she introduced them to the programs. And then we heard that another issue with attracting and keeping workers is affordable housing. And this is interesting because we talk a lot about affordable housing, but it was an opportunity for members of the Economic Development Council, as well as some of the municipal leaders, to hear that and how it affects our local economy. We also had, of course, Dottie was there, I was there, and the town administrator to answer some questions, and we continued that conversation about affordable housing.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else before we move on? Next item is other business. If anybody has any other business. If now we could open it for public comment.
John, excuse me, I
Yes.
just want to also just jump in and say that we're always eager to hear suggestions for how to make this committee better as well. So if anybody has any items that they want to put on a future agenda or any suggestions, please let us know anytime.
Right, thanks, Joanne. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 13th at 12 noon. Hopefully everybody can make it for that one. And if there's no further discussion, we can take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Great, thank you. I gave you a couple minutes back, so I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
day.